Public speaking students, I want to check in with you about your informative speech outline. I've received a few questions through email, so I want to go ahead and address those just in case you have the same questions. I'm going to talk for a moment about finding sources for your speech, and I also want to talk for a moment about using those sources in your speech. So first of all, finding the sources. The assignment sheet says, has some language in there about how many sources can be quote unquote internet sources. And so I want to clarify that for you. The fact is that you can use the internet as a tool for finding all of your sources. Now the idea here is I do encourage you to go to the library, Meyer Library databases. But of course you can access those databases from the internet. So let's say that you find an academic journal article and you don't find it in a paperback book somewhere, you find it online. But that source will be counted as an academic journal article source and not as an internet source. Does that make sense? Just because you found it on a screen doesn't mean that it is an internet only source. This same logic also holds true if your source is like the homepage of an organization. Let's say you get some information from the Mayo Clinic and you didn't get in your car and drive to the Mayo Clinic, you went to the Mayo Clinic's website. Nevertheless, the information is coming from the Mayo Clinic. And so for that reason, I will not count that as a web source. The only thing that counts as a web sources are just things like weblogs, blogs, or other just websites that don't really have any credible organization or author associated with them. We want to minimize the random websites as much as possible. If you're at a website and you look at the URL and you have no idea what it is, you've never really heard of that before, then that's something you want to shy away from. But if your information is coming from a credible source, an organization that has a reputation that people know, or a journal, a magazine, a newspaper, those are the things that we're looking for, even encyclopedias. So with that clarification about the sources, and remember, you need 6 sources. All 6 sources need to be credible, which is to say, as well, it discusses that in the reading, but basically you need some sort of certainty that the information you're getting is of high quality. I also wanted to talk about using those sources. So I talked about finding the sources. Now I want to talk about using the sources. I encourage you to paraphrase your information in your speeches. Don't copy paste word for word if you can avoid it. Basically, you're going out and reading all of this information, doing all of this research, which is a big part of the college experience, a big part of being an educated person is doing research and knowing how to do it beyond just a simple Google search. So you've found your 6 sources, you've read them, you understand the issue now better because you have done all of this reading and all of this research. And now it's up to you as the speaker to create a speech that is in your own voice. So you want to make sure that your speech sounds like you. That's actually the whole idea. You don't want your speech to sound like a Frankenstein creation where you're talking in your voice and then all of a sudden you stop sounding like you and you start talking like somebody else, some author of something that you use for your speech. Yeah, so make it all continuous, put it in your vocabulary, say it the way you would say it. But you still have to cite those sources because even though it's not necessarily word for word, even though I am encouraging you to paraphrase your sources, you're still getting the information from a source, and so you still need to cite that source. You're still getting the ideas from the source, and so you still need to cite that source, even though you're saying what the source said in your own words, okay? So cite your sources, but translate it into your own words so that it sounds like you. Make sure to cite your sources out loud use the phrase according to, and then give us all the information we need to understand what the source is and how you know it's a good source. And finally, I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure that you are using a note card. Make sure that you're standing back from the camera and standing up, not like me sitting here. I'm in my rolly chair right now. No video edits. But yeah, you use your note card, practice that. Use your card not only for a basic overview of your speech structure, but I would also include your oral source citations here. If you don't want to commit the names of the individuals, of the people who produced your sources, or the names of the organizations to memory, then you can write those down, and you can use your note card to help you make sure that you get all that citation information into the speech. I always think of speeches in two parts. There's the delivery of the speech and the content of the speech. And the delivery is the body and the voice and all the things that we do with our volume and our hands and our facial expression and our eyes to make the speech good. And then on the other hand, there's the content. And to be honest, in this assignment, what we're really focusing on is the content. And you've been able to play with delivery kind of in the last speech, in the process speech. And honestly, you're basically, in many cases, where you need to be. The delivery was good, and there's nowhere to go but up in terms of just continuing to improve and find, what are the things in your delivery that you want to tweak or to change or to experiment with. And so in that sense, you can keep doing what you're doing. But in another sense, when you think about the informative speech, as I've emphasized, the big difference between the informative speech and the process speech is this focus on content. The outline is getting a little longer, the speech is getting a little longer, it's getting more complex, there's more sources. So make sure that that change in emphasis is reflected in where you spend most of your time as you work on this material. All right, so what I've said today is a little bit of information about finding sources and how the way the internet works as a tool to find your sources, but that still you're searching for the most credible possible sources through academics, journals, and newspapers and other credible organizations that people have heard of before. And then I emphasize the importance when you're actually getting that information into your speech of citing your sources religiously and translating it into your own words. And I'm doing this, I'm telling you this because I want to avoid the problem of plagiarism. Make sure that, when you turn in your outline, it goes through a software that the university subscribes to called SafeAssign. And it catches anything that's copy pasted from a source on the internet and flags it. And that is a concern. So I want SafeAssign to not flag your outlines for me. And so that's why don't copy paste word for word. Internalize the information, think about it, translate it into your own words, and then also cite your sources. Because if there's any information in your speech that you got from another source that you don't cite, that opens you up to plagiarism, which is an academic dishonesty issue, which we take really seriously. So that's a big part of the assignment, is using information and always giving credit where credit is due. All right, getting a phone call, so that's going to be the end of our video.